Hey summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Kellen, and today I'll be going over 5 questions that only the top 1% of League players can answer perfectly. After taking some feedback into consideration, we are going to go over 5 more new scenarios, giving you the context of them and letting you try to figure out what the best play would be. If your rank is below Diamond 1, then chances are you might get a few of these questions wrong. However, if you end up acing all 5, then it's probably going to be a pretty good indication that you're a lot better at League of Legends than you might expect. For today's question of the day, which role do you think is the most difficult? Personally, I feel like this answer usually changes between the patches and between seasons. At the moment, I think bot lane is one of the weaker roles, objectively making it a harder role to carry games with. But let us know your answers to the question in the comments down below. But before we get started, are you getting ganked in your own lane? Constantly demolished? Well, don't worry, because we've got you covered. ProGuides is the #1 proven way to quickly level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides is where you'll find them. Even players like Nightblue, Bunny Fufu, and Loco Doco support ProGuides. So what are you waiting for? Click the link to start improving right now, and with all that being said, let's get started with the video. First things first, let's just talk about the implications behind these questions. Unless said otherwise, all summoner spells are up and no one is ridiculously fed or ridiculously behind. We're going to ask a question for each role, but it's very important to be able to answer all of them because you need to be able to understand each piece of the bigger picture in order to improve your macro play. Let's start with a top lane scenario. You are playing Mordekaiser while your opponent is playing Malphite, and you both just hit level 6. While your minion wave is in the middle right now, you notice that there's a ward in the brush behind the enemy bottom lane. Your Jhin and Soraka are half health, getting pushed under their turret, while the enemy Caitlyn is full health, and her support Nami is about half health as well. Your jungle Xin Zhao is farming at their Krugs, and you see the enemy jungle Echo pass by your team's ward at the Dragon Pit. It looked like he wanted to dive your bot lane. So what's the best move here? Is it A, to start moving backwards to get out of Malphite's ult range and then get ready to channel teleport while your opponents overcommit to the dive bot lane? Is it B, fast push your lane and then teleport bot immediately, that way your opponents are too scared to dive? Is it C, begin a slow push with your minion wave, you want to dive Malphite under his turret with your jungler? Or D, force a trade with the enemy Malphite, that way you can set up a gank for your Xin Zhao? Take some time to think about the answer and feel free to pause the video and resume as needed. The correct answer should be D, try and force a trade with the enemy Malphite. You want to do your best to not touch the minion wave here. Run straight at the enemy Malphite and deal as much damage as you can. Since you've both hit 6, you can even use your ult aggressively and deal as much damage as you possibly could. If you can chunk him down, this makes a dive or a gank pretty feasible. If you had instead immediately began slow pushing without trading with the Malphite first, it would be very difficult to pull off a dive. He can use his ultimate on whoever he wants and whoever starts the dive, and since this is still pretty early into the game, they would likely die without even trading any kills. The reason that you don't want to try to back off and teleport is because the enemy Malphite really has a lot of different counterplay options. He could easily follow you and try to cancel with his ultimate, or match your teleport and make it a 3v4 fight, or simply just allow you to teleport and push in the wave. Even if you begin channeling your TP, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to stop your opponents. If you teleport behind them, the enemy Malphite can teleport to the minion wave under your turret and ult you to stall for his other 3 teammates. If you teleport to your bot lane turret as the dive begins, the enemy team could just back out of the dive and now you've completely wasted your teleport. Malphite will still have his, so for the next 6 minutes he has a window to make a play on your bot lane that you'll never be able to match. For the next scenario, you are playing Olaf jungle versus a Lee Sin. Both you and the enemy Lee started on the top side, clearing downwards, and with you taking blue buff first and the enemy Lee Sin taking his red. You infer this because you saw that the enemy top laner came to lane late at the beginning of the game. After clearing red buff, you're now only 1 camp away from level 4. Your bot lane is Ashe and Leona, while the enemy bot lane is a Lucian Thresh, and the wave is sitting right in the middle. However, everyone is healthy, sitting at around 80 to 90% health, and your mid laner has also taken lane priority for you. You're not sure if the enemy bot lane has warded or not, so what should your immediate next action be? Should you A, run straight bottom to gank? You're confident that you can win a fight even if it does get counter ganked. Should you B, pressure towards the crab and take it if possible, then reassess the state of all of the lanes? Should you C, farm the Krugs and then prepare for a counter gank or recall near your bottom lane to provide them pressure? Or should you D, invade the enemy jungle and try to look for Lee Sin or even get a deep ward down? The correct answer here is B, take Rift Scuttle and then assess the situation once again. The reason you wouldn't want to farm Krugs here is because your mid laner already has lane priority. Without any other information, it's possible that the enemy Lee Sin could be doing Scuttle Crab or is instead farming some camp in his bot side jungle. You really want to be able to take the crab away as soon as possible. While it's true you're a very strong early game jungler, running straight bottom to gank isn't necessarily a high percentage play. Lucian and Thresh are a super difficult lane to gank because Lucian has a dash and Thresh has Lantern. If you were to pass by a ward, then they could continue to bait you as well, playing just safe enough that the gank is out of reach while also making it seem like they're not aware of your presence, which is a lose-lose for you. You probably don't want to invade the enemy jungle either, not because you would lose, but because it could potentially be too late. Even if you were to invade, it's likely that the extra time that it took to path into the enemy jungle from this position, Lee Sin's probably already caught up with your pathing. If you were to find him at Gromp, this would be pretty risky because the enemy bot lane would have a much easier time collapsing on you than yours coming to your aid. You'd likely have to just back off here, having wasted a little bit of time. If you farm this Scuttle Crab first, you could then look for a gank while you're level 4, not only making it safer but also more reliable. Otherwise, you could just deep ward the enemy jungle or path towards your Krugs and then take them next. Taking the Scuttle here is just the highest percentage play with the least amount of risk. Alright, now on to question number 3. You're playing Kassadin against an Orianna in the very early parts of the game, and it's not looking too good. You're running teleport while she's using heal, and you had to burn your flash from a level 2 gank. Quite unfortunately, it's a jungle diff, and you only have 700 gold at the moment, and as expected, you're playing pre-level 6 Kassadin, and Orianna's been poking you down over and over, and you're at half health and very low on mana, and Orianna has about 100 mana left as well. She's now setting up a freeze outside of her turret, and the next minion wave is going to be a cannon wave. Your jungler, Elise, is currently top lane, waiting in the fog of war to dive the enemy top laner following her first clear, and you infer that Jarvan is likely started topside because of the level 2 gank when he ganked you with red buff, so what should you do? Should you A, recall and teleport back to your turret, ward and then try to break the freeze? Should you B, recall and then walk back to lane, allowing Orianna to continue freezing? Should you C, stay far back and wait for Elise to finish her play and then ask her to come mid and push in the wave with you? Or should you D, allow Orianna to zone you from gold but no experience while you ever so graciously hug the top side of the lane? The correct answer here is to allow Orianna to continue freezing. It really sucks, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. To be honest with you, none of these questions are really wrong answers because a lot of it is just a thought process. At worst, they're all pretty much medium risk. The reason recalling and walking back to the lane is safest because it really preserves your teleport in the case that you might need it for a better time, and because you won't fall victim to an immediate jungle gank. If you TP'd already back to lane and got ganked again with no flash, I mean that's just completely GG. If you were to recall while Orianna is freezing the wave, she could technically also take her recall after setting up a freeze, and that could hold itself for a while. However, if you notice this, then you could then just after seeing that, return to base and then channel your teleport to punish it. If you were to recall and teleport back immediately, of course, you're gonna run into the Jarvan when you're warding as well, and you might even die to him again. Waiting for Elise to come help you could work under a different circumstance, but not likely in this one. Even if Elise came to help you break the freeze, Jarvan could come and force a 2v2, and considering Orianna not only has a heal advantage over you, but you're also early game Kassadin, that's probably a lost 2v2. Hugging the top side of the lane for experience is not as risky as it sounds. Theoretically, Jarvan should be towards the bot lane in this situation, or he'll likely even be reacting to Elise's dive topside if he's nearby. However, this is not for certain, which is why it's not necessarily the best play to make. Alright, in this next scenario, you are playing Caitlyn and your lane partner is Morgana. You're up against Jinx and Nami, and in the jungle, you have an Olaf jungle facing off against a Zack. In your solo lanes, they are two very snowbally matchups. Your team has Darius top and Diana mid, while the enemy team has Riven top and LeBlanc mid. What should you do to plan before the minions even spawn? Should you A, let Olaf solo his blue buff or start at his red buff? You want to show up to lane immediately, that way you can begin pushing in the wave and look for turret plating. Should you B, coordinate a late invade and try to 3v3 the enemy team at their red buff and try to take an early lead or even split the map? Should you maybe C, ask Olaf to start red buff, path down, and gank your lane, that way you can shut down Jinx, while also showing up to lane early to pull the wave and letting it push to you? Or should you D, set up an ambush at the tri-brush, that way you can chunk out your opponents. If your opponents are low enough, it should be much easier to win the lane by yourselves and allow Olaf to pressure the other snowballing lanes. The correct answer is to B, coordinate a late invade. While every single lane in the game is important to win, you have to consider which lanes are the easiest for Olaf to gank. LeBlanc and Riven are both extremely mobile champions, which can lead to Olaf wasting a lot of his time. In this scenario, you have to recognize that you are the key proponent to early game success. With a late invade, you might end up baiting Zack into starting his W, meaning that you are going to 3v3 a level 1 Jinx, a Nami who might even start at bubble, and a Zack with W. On the other hand, you have Caitlyn Q, Morgana's bind, and Olaf axes, which basically have no cooldown. Whether or not you pick up kills, you can push Zack off of his red buff and then set him behind on tempo. Olaf can take the buff, and now the enemy bot lane knows that Olaf is bot side, so they are forced to play extremely passive. If Zack starts topside instead, you'll still get the same result, a split map which will benefit your team because you can apply more pressure onto the dragon and the enemy bot lane together. Asking Olaf to path down could provide a similar result, but Zack could potentially mirror this pathing, creating another 3v3 scenario where everyone now has all of their abilities. If you split the map, it ensures that it'll always be a 3v2 instead, and if you were to set up an ambush, the enemy bot lane could avoid this, or instead not even walk into the bush because Zack decided to start at his top side instead. Final scenario now. You are playing support Janna at around the 11-minute mark. You just finished recalling, but your lane partner Jhin was nearly full health, so he decided to just stay in lane. Your lane opponents are Caitlyn and Soraka. Caitlyn is full health while Soraka is around 60%, and Caitlyn and Soraka have stacked up a minion wave in the center of the lane and have begun transitioning into a fast push. You notice that the enemy Zed just shoved in your Victor and is walking bottom based on one of the wards that your allies have placed. You have no information on where the enemy's Ivern is, but you know that your Kha'Zix is currently soloing Rift Herald topside, and your top Darius is running Ghost instead of Teleport. It really be like that sometimes. You have no information on the enemy jungle wherever though, and so you don't know what to do. Jhin looks like he's going to stay in hopes of catching that wave, and you're again currently at your fountain. So what should your next play be? Should you A, try to run to Jhin and save him from the dive with your ultimate and your shields? If Jhin starts retreating here, it's still going to be possible to save him, especially by the tier 2 turret. Should you B, run bottom and try to save Jhin if it's possible, and then after the play try stalling some time by shielding the turret and then throwing tornadoes, that way your top side of the map can try to get the first turret with Rift Herald? Should you C, beeline to the top side of the map, either helping your jungler take Rift Herald or even ganking top if possible? Or should you D, path to the enemy's top side jungle to set up vision? You're going to lose your bottom lane turret no matter what, so you should try to get deep vision while most enemies are on the bottom side of the map. If you answered C or D, either of these options are correct. Whenever your teammate ints, they int and you can't always do something about it. Even if you were to end up saving Jhin in this situation, you are going to lose that bot lane turret no matter what, because the rest of your teammates are not going to be there to assist you. If Dragon is up, they will either take it after they take your turret, or maybe they'll even reset or take it again when they're even stronger. They'll rotate to their bottom lane from the top or mid lane and continuing pressuring turrets. By rotating to the top side of the map as the support, you can guarantee that your team will trade something back. The correct answer in this scenario is to technically rotate towards the top side of the map and then react based on whatever information you gain. If you were to notice that both Ivern and Zed showed up to dive bottom or even make a play on the bottom side of the map, then you would look at the map, analyze the situation, and determine the best possible play. If you're able to drop some wards in the top side of the map, your objective of getting back as much as possible would be really good because you can then set up some future plays, especially considering the Kha'Zix is getting Rift Herald. Since the enemy jungler is also Ivern, who doesn't have much kill pressure, you are pretty free to walk into the enemy's jungle to deep ward in this specific scenario, but against ones with more lethal threat like a Rengar or a Lee Sin, this would not necessarily be the best choice unless you saw them on the opposite side of the map for sure. But even though you don't know where the Ivern is currently, you're not really at any threat of walking into his jungle. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this ProGuides video. Thank you very much for checking it out, and please leave any feedback or comments down below. We love taking into your consideration all the things that you guys want us to do better, and we really want to make this a series that can last, but we need your help to do so. Let us know any critiques that you might have, and we will make sure to improve upon it. Also, I want to remind you guys that you can check out our YouTube channel, as of course, ProGuides.com has all kinds of guides and informational content aimed at helping you guys improve. Until next time, good luck on Rift, and I will see you all then.